time. So I'm Eva Schwab. I'm Junior Policy Officer at FEANSA, working on energy poverty, and this year particularly the Social Climate Fund and the ETS2 revenue redistribution. I'm very happy to welcome you to this webinar on overcoming barriers to reaching those who need the social climate plans the most. As a quick heads up, we are recording the webinar. So in case you do not want to be recorded, you can switch off your camera or microphone. And otherwise, I would really encourage you to keep your camera on to make it more personal, and also to use your microphone in the Q&A session. But you can also use the chat if you want to. As an intro to the webinar, the social climate plans are at the moment in the stage of development. In the member states, the consultations are taking place. We know from some of the member states what's happening there, and that's also something we're going to hear today. And the social climate plans pose a unique opportunity as they will be laying out the measures and investments to use the Social Climate Fund, which is the first fund that is dedicated exclusively to the most vulnerable segment of the population in energy poverty. So this is an exciting development. The most vulnerable households in energy poverty consist both of tenants and homeowners. They are frequently in the first 2 to 3 income deciles. They frequently live in homes with multiple deficiencies, such as leaky roofs, drafty windows, outdated electric wiring, mold, and at times additional indoor pollution from heating with solid fuels, for example. And these households are also frequently affected by housing insecurity, including informality, short-term or informal rental contracts, frequently suffering also from housing cost overburden. And many of these households are also, as we are going to hear today, dealing with debt or financial exclusion. These households have been frequently overlooked in existing programs and investments for energy efficiency and also for the heat transition. And the main reasons for that are upfront costs that cannot be paid or self-contributions. There's lack of access to credit, or these households have a lack of capacity and simply overwhelm of dealing with and organizing complicated renovation processes, including multiple actors and responsibilities. With the social climate plans, we have the unique opportunity to design measures that truly benefit these households, that reach them, with measures that help them the most and that pick them up from where they are now and what is needed the most and what is needed first. The Social Climate Fund alone will not be enough for this purpose. For example, a study by the IEECP showed that renovation needs of low-income households in 10 southern and eastern European member states amount to 140 billion euro, and the Social Climate Fund will only be a fraction of that, even if it's entirely used for the purpose. So we will need additional funding for a just transition. And this can come from ETS2 revenues, but also from the next EU budget, particularly the ERDF and also ESF+. I think it is very important that the social climate plans will be designed with ambition and that they are the first step in designing measures that will truly help the most vulnerable. So in keeping with that theme, we are having 2 rounds of discussion. 2 rounds of presentations. There will be a bit of an opportunity after each block to ask 2 or 3 audience questions, and then we will have a longer Q&A at the end. The first block of presentations will be on common barriers and best practices in reaching households in energy poverty, and also the state of the social climate plan consultations. And we will have 4 speakers, and I welcome our first speaker, who is Miljenka Kuchar. She's an executive director at DOOR, which is the Society for Shaping Sustainable Development in Croatia. Her work focuses on social and gender issues in the context of the just and inclusive energy transition, particularly on topics related to climate justice and energy poverty. She has worked in the public sector and managed multiple projects funded by the European Commission, including Horizon 2020, LIFE program, Erasmus Plus, and Interreg. So I give this stage to Miljenka, and yeah, thank you for being here.
Thank you for inviting me, and I will just take a minute to share my presentation. Okay, can you see the presentation?
Yes, we can see the presentation. It's in working mode still.
Is it better now?
Now it's presentation. Yes, thank you.
So thank you for inviting me and for introduction. As we have been discussing the topic beforehand, the idea was to present what we have done in Croatia regarding social climate plans. That has been sent. The first draft has been sent to Commission the other day, like last week, and DOOR was one of the few organizations that actually participated in the working process of planning the social climate plans, and we have been proposing some of the measures in the area that is related to energy poverty. So for the measures that we'll try to mitigate energy poverty in Croatia in several regions. So as Eva already said, the allocation for that is planned from Social Climate Fund is not nearly enough for all the measures that we need to implement across the EU, especially in Central and Eastern Europe. So we, as a country, have at our disposal around 1,068 million of euros, and nationally they decided that 20% of this allocation will be directed to direct support to households and micro enterprises that will be especially vulnerable to ETS2 system. 30% will supposedly go to energy efficiency measures, and around 50% will go to different transport poverty related measures. And I will today focus only on energy poverty measures because of the time, and we did not work as much on transport energy poverty. So the plan will actually have 2 components. One will be the measures and investments that are directed to building sector primarily, and then to road transport sector. And the idea is with these measures to try to reduce emissions and mitigate vulnerability. And then the second part of the plan will be directed towards direct income support that might mitigate in some ways negative consequences of the ETS2 system. The idea behind this direct income support is just to be temporarily measure, and not to be something that will continue beyond the period when the social climate plan should be implemented. So the target audience is probably, as is in other countries as well, vulnerable households, vulnerable micro enterprises, and vulnerable transport users. And here we actually have some issues that we already discussed over email, that maybe the Croatian social climate plan is not targeting precisely all the possible and potential recipients of the possible measures, because the criteria, we still don't have specific criteria how the money will be awarded. And based on some of the previous experiences, we know that some of the measures that have been targeting vulnerable households that are vulnerable to energy poverty or energy poor households were not created in optimal way, meaning that some measures did actually not targeted the people that were living below the poverty line, or were living in the conditions of severe material deprivation or social exclusion. And maybe the most significant change that social climate planning process actually brought to Croatia is that we finally have definition of energy poverty and transport poverty. Definition of energy poverty has been made official in terms that it has been adopted at the beginning of this year in the amendments of Energy Efficiency Act. And actually, it is very, very similar to the definition that was already provided by European Commission in Energy Efficiency Directive. The only novelty regarding the Croatian case is that any household that is actually living in the building that has poor energy performance or poor energy efficiency that was caused by any type of severe, for example, earthquake or any other type of severe circumstances will have priority in the renovation process. So here are the overview of some of the measures that have been included in social climate plans. The first measure is targeting integral energy renovation, deep renovation, and comprehensive renovation, as well as some individual energy renovations measures for the worst performing family houses at the general territory of Republic of Croatia. And the idea is to target low-income houses, energy-poor houses, and households that have been severely affected by ETS2 system. The challenge in this part is that a lot of potential users of this fund actually don't have legal ownership of their houses or are living in other precarious situations that are excluded by this measure. So you need to have, in order to be eligible to get any type of funding from this type of measures, you need to prove your ownership and the legality of the household and the plot that the house has been built on. So this is one of the huge challenges for people who are maybe living in very precarious situations that will not be able to use these funds and will be especially vulnerable because they are already living below the poverty threshold and they're living in really horrendous situations. The second measure that we really fought for is the information measure and support measure to one-stop shop. Because as you know, and it's probably the situation in a lot of Central and Eastern Europe countries, we still lack a lot of knowledge at the level of general population, especially at the level of people who are vulnerable to different types of poverty regarding energy efficiency, energy renovation, or any other types of measures that are available on the market. They simply are not well informed or simply don't know where to turn to or to whom they can turn to get the informations, and mostly the informations have been centralized in the bodies that were providing funds. So the idea behind this measure is to create one-stop shops in different regions and different municipalities that have been mapped as regions or municipalities with the highest level of people who are in different poverty situations and who have been estimated to be especially vulnerable to the changes that are coming with the implementation of ETS2 system. So the idea is to try to create this network of different one-stop shops and similar infrastructure mechanisms in order to help people to be informed and to actually get the help that they need if they are available or eligible for the help. The third measure is the measure that will support affordable housing. This is the continuation of the measure that is currently being implemented in the area of special state care. So Croatia has this law that is that identified different areas in Croatia that are areas of so-called special state care, and these areas are usually areas that were either damaged in the war during 90s or severely secluded areas that are not easily accessible. And in the previous in the period from 2021 to 2027, government is actually using recovery and resilience funds to renovate multi-apartment buildings that are situated in some of the places in this area of special state care. Only 56 buildings has been renovated since 2021, and they still need to renovate around 232 buildings. And these buildings are usually owned by either by government or either by local authorities, and usually there are buildings that house people who are already beneficiaries of some type of social welfare system assistance, or are extremely poor and are using this social type of housing. When we are talking about direct income support, this is actually the measure that was created at the last minute, and it's not really clear in the plan how the funds will be allocated to the citizens. The idea behind the measure is to target the most vulnerable groups to mitigate the costs of green transition, and they are planning to give some forms of vouchers to help most vulnerable citizens that are probably already part of a welfare system, to give them the additional funds to fund their heating or cooling costs, especially for the gas, fuel oil, or solid fuels. In the cases of the heating costs, and for some type of motor fuels in the case of people who are using their own vehicles because they're living in the areas that are severely secluded or don't have access to public transportation. So they're kind of being forced to own the car in order to be able to access any type of health care or social services. And
Can I
at
ask
this
you to wrap up in a minute?
Yeah, this is my
time?
probably
Perfect.
I have just two more slides. So this is the slide that I'm trying to show you how much how we estimated the energy savings in gigawatt hours, depending on the different measures, and you can see like that there has been some increase depending on the year. And the next slide is the same estimation of emission savings in kilotons of equivalent of CO2. Same for the first three measures that I presented to you. Thank you for the time and for the opportunity to be able to present this these measures to you, and I hope that we will have fruitful discussion.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mianka. That was a very comprehensive presentation in the short time, and I think yeah, showed some of the opportunities and also barriers. What you mentioned with the legal home ownership, that is an issue in accessing the measure, and also about the size of the social climate fund. And I would like to continue with our next speaker, that is Zsuzsanna Koritar from Hungary. Zsuzsanna works as an energy efficiency policy expert for Habitat for Humanity in Hungary. And She has a focus on improving the energy performance of buildings. Before joining Habitat, she worked as a director for the Hungarian Energy Efficiency Institute, and she brings a social inclusion perspective on the climate goals and advocates for quality and affordable housing and the reduction of energy poverty. Zuzana has extensive knowledge in advocating for energy efficiency to market actors, policymakers, and other decision makers, and also successfully engaged with companies and professional organizations and develop background research and policy proposals on the topic. So welcome to Zuzana, and I give you the floor. And do you want me to share the presentation, or do you want to try?
Well, I try first, but I hope. Do you still see the working mode or the presentation mode?
Yeah, it's still in working mode.
Okay. This is what happened.
Yeah, so I will share it.
Okay. Thank you. So when until it's open, I'd like to say thank you for the invitation and the opportunity to be here and to contribute to this very important topic and conversation. And today I will share with you some reflections from the Hungarian context on energy poverty, on the barriers that vulnerable households face, and how we can and how we should design better and more inclusive programs. I will also present you one of our programs, Habitat Hungary's programs, which might be a good contributor to these more inclusive programs and to the social climate plan. I can't yet see the presentation.
Is this a slide you want?
I see your desktop and the files, the list of files. So it's not the presentation.
Yeah.
I don't know if others.
Yeah. I share again.
Yes.
Now?
But it's but it's not the presentation mode. It's still the yes. Okay, that's the first. Okay, so in Hungary, as in many other EU member states, especially in the CE regions, the most vulnerable and the groups most in need of support are generally the low-income households living in their own property. EU SIRC data in the upper left corner show that the majority of those living under the risk of poverty rate live in rural settlements. These buildings are old and have very low energy performance. In the graph in the upper right corner, you can see the distribution of energy classes of the Hungarian residential building stock. The green lines are the multifamily building flats, and blue lines represent the single-family houses. And you can see that more than 80% of these houses fall within the two lowest energy performing classes. These houses are often heated with the inefficient stoves and outdated gas systems, as you can see in the pictures in the left part. And these houses are often a great proportion of households use firewood for heating, especially in the low-income groups. In the chart below, you can see that almost 60% of the households in the lowest income quintile use solid biomass in Hungary, and 42% relies solely on firewood. These homes are the hardest to upgrade, and yet the occupants are among the most energy poor. In Hungary, many of these most vulnerable households remain completely excluded from public renovation programs, despite the sometimes very generous government subsidies on renovations. The design and the delivery mechanisms are structurally and systematically exclusive for these social groups. So we have a clear paradox. The people most affected by high energy costs and poor housing are those most excluded from the support. Next slide, please. So what are the common barriers to prevent the most vulnerable from accessing support? In Hungary, we have no socially targeted support programs. The barriers have several layers. The upfront cost and co-financing requirements are a major barrier. Programs in practice often require households to pay a significant share of renovation costs in advance. And for families living paycheck to paycheck or below the poverty line, this is simply not possible. Secondly, the bureaucratic complexity. Application procedures are too complex. They require extensive documentation, and they presume a high level of literacy and financial stability. And for many vulnerable households, these are just not possible to tackle. There is also a mismatch between eligibility criteria and real-life circumstances. For example, programs may have specific requirements related to the technical parameters of the dwelling, such as the size should reach a certain threshold, and this cannot be met in many cases. There is also little knowledge on energy efficiency renovations in general, but also on how to perform high-quality renovations, which truly results in energy savings. And finally, there is a lack of trust, a lack of trusted intermediaries. Vulnerable households often do not know where to turn for help. They need face-to-face assistance in their local communities to understand their needs, navigate through the paperwork, and carry out the renovations. So just click one, please. How can the measures be designed and implemented to overcome these barriers and truly target the low income and the marginalized groups? Next slide, yes. Just click through until yes. So the first and foremost, we need targeted grant-based programs that reach the poorest households directly by eliminating the exclusionary mechanisms, the barriers that I was talking about, by including social targeting, criteria on social targeting, such as income levels, so that the program is not available to those who don't need this kind of support. And the next one is by providing assistance through one-stop shops. So please click one again. Yes, develop one-stop shops which are designed for the needs of vulnerable and energy poor households and which can deliver quality renovations through the support programs. Next slide, please. So at Habitat for Humanity Hungary, this is precisely what we have developed. We launched the program in 2021, which is still ongoing, so I can share 4 years of experience now with you. The program initiated in partnership with the social banking branch of a commercial bank, and it builds on an existing national support scheme. This state support is for households with children living in settlements with less than 5,000 inhabitants, and it provides 100% non-refundable grant for housing renovation. The scheme is intended for demographic and rural sustainability purposes, so it has no energy efficiency criteria or targets, but within but within Habitat program, most of the renovations are energy related. The subsidy scheme has a post-financing model. Subsidies are only paid after the renovation have been performed. So this excludes low-income households from this grant who can't front the costs. So our model combines a revolving fund to pre-finance renovations, individualized administrative and social support, and expert technical planning and implementation to ensure that renovations are effective. These three components, the money, help, and quality, form a holistic solution that directly addresses the barriers. So with the cooperation of the bank, we set up a revolving fund through which we can advance the renovation costs of and it is revolving because after the renovation have been finished, we apply for the state subsidy and this arrives to the fund. Next slide, please. Yeah, just click through, yes. So Habitat Hungary reaches out to rural families through our local advisor. She's a well-known person in the region, and this is important because we need to build trust. She proactively reaches out to the targeted households because it is a very important step because these vulnerable households usually don't come by themselves for help. The advisor checks the eligibility for the state fund. And we assist, our one-stop shop assists the renovation planning. We have energy auditors, installers, building renovation companies that can help with planning, and we also help with the budget planning. We assist the application, the state grant application, administration and the bureaucracy, and also we follow the application process. Click, please. We facilitate the renovation, and after the renovation, we submit the report. So we do the reporting to the authorities and providing the grant. So we follow through the whole customer journey with these households, because without this very specific assistance, they will be stuck in one of the, most probably already at the beginning of the process. And finally, my next slide, please, is about the National Social Climate Plan. Unfortunately, there's a high risk that the Hungarian government will not implement ETS2, which means that Hungary will not be eligible for the Social Climate Fund. It's yet a risk, but nevertheless, the Social Climate Plan is under preparation. It is done by the Ministry of Energy. There are several consultations that are ongoing. We already had 2 kind of workshops with the ministry officials about, and where we introduced their recommendations. Also, we talked about this program of our one-stop shop. And there will be early June, there will be further consultations. So most probably there will be a social climate plan. It will not be submitted by the end of June, by the deadline, but most probably somewhere during the autumn. But still, if the ETS2 will not be implemented in Hungary, then this will unfortunately will not be implemented. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Susanna, for the presentation, which was very insightful. Adding the question of eligibility criteria versus real-life reality, for example, with the size of the buildings and lack of trusted intermediaries, and then also your model how you give comprehensive support to households to actually access and become eligible for funding. So I hope that will be inspirational for others. And I see that Anna also shared the best practice in the chat. So thank you for that. And we have as our next speaker, Michał Wojtyła from the Polish Reform Institute. He's a public policy analyst. and deals with projects concerning climate governance on national and EU level, with a particular focus on the just energy transition. Before that, he was a deputy director of the Center for Analysis of the Jagiellonian Club, and his publications deal mainly with topics of energy and climate policy and EU policy. And he's a graduate of electrical engineering, as well as international relations, economy, and public administration at the Krakow University of Economics. And yeah, thank you for being here, Michał.
Thank you, Eva, for the invitation and the introduction. And so I'm going to start sharing the presentation. And we'll see how it goes. We can see. So is everything all right now? Concerning
yes, perfect. Thank you.
Great. Yes, my name is Michał Wojtyła. I'm public policy analyst at the Reform Institute, and my presentation is not going to be. I will not dive into specifics concerning the Polish social climate plans because it's not fully official yet. I would say a couple of words at the end, but because of that, I wanted, and also Eva asked me to focus on the barriers in the Polish building sectors, and specifically the case of heat pump subsidies we had. But first, I wanted to show all of you that Polish, in case of Poland, in case of ETS2 implementation, in case of general just and fair transition policies, the case of Poland is quite specific because of a huge dependence of coal in individual heating. Over 50% of single family buildings use coal as the only source of heating. So that's over 3 million households. And additionally, over 1 million of those use boilers that are not meeting any standards. So that's a huge challenge for the replacement of coal and getting the coal out of our individual heating sector. And there is also a couple of arguments why the coal is such extensively present in our heating sector. First of all, there is no national carbon tax in terms of coal. It's relatively cheap fuel. Also, as I said, there are a lot of boilers not meeting any standards, so there is this opportunity for people, especially low income, to heat their houses with whatever they find they get, and to decrease their heating costs. And additionally, the narrative of the governments in the past and also the current one is quite very mild concerning coal exit in terms. So during the energy crisis, there was this one-time direct subsidy for coal heaters, which was understandable, but there was questions about other groups of society that heated, for example, their homes with heat pumps. They were not as extensively supported. So it was, and there was no income-related criteria concerning the coal subsidy. The good side of this policy of the one income support is that it required reporting. You had to report that you had coal boiler in your house in order to get a subsidy, and thanks to that we have much better data right now on the issue, on the challenge, and the data that are presented here are from this register that was then updated thanks to the subsidy. So there is one of the general recommendation that if you do have direct subsidy, you have take this opportunity to gather as much information as you can in order to do better policy in the future. So right now we have more information because of that. And the coal is going to be even bigger challenge due to the upcoming ETS2. And as you can see on the graph on the presentation, ETS2 is very, very impactful on the households that heat their buildings with coal individually. So even in the fourth decile, even fifth decile in terms of income, the impact is to the heating expenditure share in income is going to be bigger than for the gas people that heat the houses with gas. So with this coal-specific challenge is something that Polish Social Climate Plan has to facilitate, has to work with, and everything that we can see from draft process of Social Climate Plan is that there's going to be some focus on that. Also in our national strategy, for now we have the target of 2040 of full complete coal exits from the individual heating. It's going to be probably shortened to 2035. So there are some policies that are taking place, but in this phase of transition, the households that are heating their buildings with coal has to be supported also through direct income with the targeted renovation measures, so they go out of the coal dependency. Coal, which additionally is mostly imported. The Polish coal is usually used for the general systemic energy system, and the coal that we use in houses is generally imported. So that's not really the case of using your own resources, so there's even less reason to lag behind in the coal exit in the individual heating. So there's this case of subsidizing heat pumps. Since 2018 in Poland we have the Clean Air program, which is generally, I think, considered a success because it's one of the bigger programs that targets renovation, that has this, there's more subsidy for the lower income. There's some case of pre-financing. Of course, there were some possible irregularities, especially 1 or 2 years ago. But I just want to show that this is a program that is being thought of as also a tool in the future to facilitate the coal exit from the individual heating sector in Poland in buildings, and also the whole, getting the popularity of heat pumps higher in Poland. So on the right, on the graph, you can see the share of sources that were requested in the Clean Air program, and as you can see, there is a huge drop in 2023, and the biomass boilers tend to rise in terms of subsidizing from this program. The gas boilers were until the end of last year, there were possible to get a subsidy for gas boilers. There is still some small path to still get a subsidy for gas boilers, but generally it will be shortly not possible to get a public subsidy for that. So what we're seeing now is that biomass is rising, heat pumps are lowering, and with the heat pumps, there was a huge media uproar in a couple of months ago about raising bills after change from coal boiler into heat pump. But of course, the story is more complex than just the titles of the articles. So what fueled the uproar was, in general, not right policy concerning the change, the transition, the replacement of the boiler. There was no, until June last year, there was no obligation to insulate the building. So into these buildings with very low energy efficiency. They were put heat pumps, probably very often low quality ones, wrong size. They were not done properly, and they were very popular also because there was 100% pre-financing subsidy, which went directly to the installers, and because of that, to the companies, the prices were and the costs were inflated. So there were the policies concerning the criteria of the program were not sufficient to limit the irregularities. So there, in the effect, very often, the most vocal were the people that lost the most and paid the highest bills after the change into heat pumps. And since then, there was some new limits introduced into the program. So I think this is a general opinion that it's going into the right way right now. But this case shows how important it is to have the right criteria in place, because it influences the general social trust into the system, the popularity of new technologies such as heat pumps. And there's also this context in Poland that heat pumps and the electricity prices, electricity heating generally do not have the advantage in terms of tax and other costs when we look and compare it with gas and biomass heating options.
Can I ask you to wrap up in about 1 minute? Thank you so much.
Of course. And I'm just finishing. So when you don't have that data after how bills generally rose, it went over 20% if you look at some models, but they might have been even twice higher than before with coal boilers. So there's I'm just saying, we at the Reform Institute, we have this heat pump report with 7 deadly sins of heat pumps in the EU. I invite you to read it. There's also this case of a barrier in the Stop Smoke program in Poland concerning a huge burden on local authorities. And that is another possible barrier in the renovation, as local authorities do not have the resources or financial contribution resources to support renovation. And I just want to stress out that the renovation will be even more crucial when we look at the ETS2 implementation to limit the cost, even without changing the heating source. The insulation of houses will be crucial to limit the costs of ETS2. And the last point I have is that social climate plan is not everything. There's also ETS2 related revenues, which could be even twice as big for Poland than the social climate plan. And from my point of view, from our organization point of view, there should be direct income support in the transition phase for the people who do not manage to get the social climate plan and direct income, especially the ones that do not buy directly the fuels such as coal and gas. There are energy poor people also in the cities who use electricity also for heating, and those should be supported from the general revenue. And the social climate plan, I didn't want to talk about that. I'm just going to say that in a week or two, there's probably going to be a first officer draft plan. There were some pre-consultation with local authorities, regional authorities, and NGOs, and we had an opportunity to get our input in, to get our feedback. There were generally, relatively to other countries, I think, very open, quite open consultation with the targeted stakeholders, and there's going to be a public consultation in 1 to 3 weeks time. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Michal. That was a very rich presentation. And so I think it's very important to look at the ETS2 impact, especially on coal users in the lowest income deciles. That was quite an impressive chart that you had. And the emphasis also on renovation support for those households who cannot transition their heating method so fast, and then also what the context from the Clean Air Program, that there was a failure to really tie the program to obligatory building insulation first. So thank you a lot for these points, and I will go to our next speaker and the last speaker in this block. That is Svetoslav Stoikov. He is leading the building renovation campaign at Zazemyata, which is Friends of the Earth Bulgaria. And he's currently focusing on renovation of single-family homes and the development of integrated home renovation services, which is one-stop shops across the country, and with a particular attention to rural households. So welcome, Svetoslav, and thank you for being here.
Thank you, Eva. I will now share my screen and we can start. Okay. Can you see my screen right now?
Yes, it's presentation mode. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. So I will be quite brief. I will just skim through several aspects because I'm aware that we don't have enough time. But first, I'm going to give you a very short introduction of what is happening in Bulgaria around building renovation. So the thing is that 93% of our residential building stock does not meet the efficiency requirements. There are 67,000 multifamily buildings and 1.3 million single-family residential buildings that need to be renovated. So for the multifamily aspects, I will present you some data right now. There are probably around 4.2% a multifamily building renovated between 2007 and 2020, and in the last several years. From then on, under the National Recovery and Resilience Plan, there are around 1,000 buildings renovated in 2 stages. Of course, not all of the works have been commenced, but the stage 1 was with 100% grant component, the stage 2 with 20% co-financing. There is a slight error here in my slide. So the thing is that the goal was to achieve 30% primary energy demand savings, which it's not so challenging to do. And under the just transition mechanism, 129 multifamily buildings, they were approved for renovation in January 2025. In the 3 just transition regions in the component, again with 100% grant component, which we see as a problem. And what I want to focus on is that in Bulgaria, there is no really a program or a set of programs for renovation of single-family residential buildings. There is a program that is currently running, and it was running in the past several years for changing heating appliances, but it is limited in scope, and only around 28,000 households were basically used it. Just because the scope of this program was limited to areas, to cities where there were significant challenges with the air quality. And what is the problem with that is that only in very few locations in the country actually such measurements are being done. So the thing is that the majority of the population, it's excluded also from this program for changing of heat appliances. And the thing is that around 50%, a little bit more of the of the population of Bulgaria lives in single-family homes, and they have effectively been left out by the authorities to cope out on their own. And here are just two numbers from Bulgaria's building renovation strategy, that until 2030, Bulgaria needs to renovate 12,000 multifamily buildings and 40,000 single-family buildings. So how we are going to do that, I still don't have an answer. But at the current pace of building renovation for multifamily buildings, Bulgaria will renovate its building stock a little after 2100, so in 75 years. And basically, what the data is showing is that the rural and peri-urban areas experience higher levels of energy poverty compared to rural areas, and these the people living there are, in most of the cases, they are just left out on their own. And of course, as in many other countries, we have lower income levels, higher unemployment, and poorer building envelope quality in these in these areas, in these households. And a little bit about the social climate plan, what it's happening. The social climate plan was basically something like a hot potato, and the ministries they were just passing the ball between each other for quite some time. And right now, in the last 6 months, it has been under the umbrella of the Council of Ministers. So there are several ministries under the umbrella of the Council of Ministers who are basically developing this plan. But the thing is that for me, this is a little bit of a problem, just because I don't see a lot of coordination between the ministries, and not a lot of coordination between the schemes and the programs that they are proposing. And this is one of the of the major problems. And two official events in these springs, they were dedicated on the social climate plans, and they passed for some kind of consultation. Even there were more presentations from the Council of Ministers and from several of the ministries responsible for the measures on what it's included. And there was very little practical information on the projects in these two events. So the thing is that unofficially we have received several projects from one of the ministries responsible for building renovation, and several days ago we received 10 project proposals, also unofficially. And the thing is that the first official draft is expected to be submitted for public consultation till the end of the week, this Friday. So we are going to have 1 month to comment on the measures there. But the thing is that what we have seen from the data that we have unofficially received is that there is no clear process for identifying households experiencing energy poverty. So we have energy poverty definition from quite some time already, but the thing is that we still don't have a structure responsible for these definitions. So we don't have a structure who is going to identify actually the households experiencing energy poverty, and this is quite a big problem for us. And what we have heard and what we have actually seen is that there is a proposal, especially for the program for the multifamily building program included in the social climate plan, that the municipalities, they have to identify the buildings where 50 or more % of the households are experiencing energy poverty. But how to do that, I don't really know, because they don't have the instruments to do so. And we don't have an energy poverty observatory or no responsible body. Still, this is one of our major problems: identifications of the households who are experiencing energy poverty and who need to be supported. And so there is a big chance that the programs won't reach those who need them the most. And something that that was presented in these two events and in our talks afterwards with the responsible ministries and with the Council of Ministers, is that somehow there is a possibility that the households reliant on firewood for heating, they may not be included as a target group. And this is a big group in Bulgaria, because the thing is that especially in the single family sector, the majority of the households still rely on biomass, mostly firewood, for their heating needs. And I'm just going to skim through several of these project proposals that we have unofficially received, and give you the situation over there very briefly. So according to the proposal for multifamily buildings, support is planned for only around 26,000 vulnerable households, while according to the same authors in the same documents, a total of 325,000 households are living in multifamily buildings, are experiencing energy poverty. And the thing is that the entire resource of this program will only reach 7.9% of those genuinely in need.
Can I ask you to wrap up in about a minute?
Okay, no worries. No worries. There is also a warm home project, which for me was the most interesting, and we see it as a good measure. It is basically funding heating appliances, but there are a couple of problems with it, and allocating 100% grant funding to users who do not actually need it, and implementing measures in buildings with compromised structural integrity. It's also we see it also as a problem. There are several positive aspects, but on the negative aspects, I want to say that there is a complex administrative implementations for the municipalities, because as always, the responsibility has been thrown to the municipalities, the responsibilities for carrying out the project, and they simply don't have the capacity to provide technical assistance, on-site control, consultations, and all of these things, which should be covered by one-stop shops, but still we have very, very little one-stop shops in the country. As you can see, we have a clear financial assistance delivery procedure which vulnerable households cannot be expected to pre-finance projects and wait for reimbursement. Still, it is not really clear how this project is going to run. And basically, what we need to achieve building renovation targets in Bulgaria, it's a long-term continuous building renovation programs, introduction of programs targeting single-family residential buildings, maximum subsidy for energy-poor citizens, simplification of bureaucracy, and technical assistance, and one-stop shops. And the thing is, what I am doing right now, very briefly, I'm going to say I'm conducting a study on the building renovation needs of single-family households, and what I am seeing in the interviews that I'm having, it's that the technical assistance element, it's really crucial for doing some quality works and some change in the area, and it is seen by professionals, architects, engineers. It is seen by building owners, and it is also seen by municipalities. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Svetoslav, for the presentation. That was very interesting and comprehensive. Also, I think important to raise the restrictions in the eligibility criteria, especially with single-family rural homes. That there was only the program for high air pollution zones, and then also what you shared from the consultations. There's concern about no clear process for identifying the households that will actually be vulnerable, and that it's unclear to identify the beneficiaries, and the recommendations that you shared for inclusive renovation programs. That's very useful. So we are running behind in time a bit, but we have also lost one speaker, so we also have added time in that sense. And so I would like to ask the audience, we have very brief time for maybe 2 questions. If you have a question for the speakers, you are invited to raise them now, and then we will proceed. Yeah. We have one question in the chat, which is from Chris. Chris, do you want to unmute yourself and to ask Michał?
Yeah, but I can answer either way
Okay,
because Chris
thank you.
wrote that he cannot unmute. So what I pasted on the chat is the recent response of our Minister of Climate and Environment, Paulina Hennig-Kloska, and she said that if getting sorry, yeah, of course. So if there's no, they will try to have a derogation for Poland for the ETS2 because of coal, and that is the most recent, I think, statement in the official media. But we can see a small change that in the past there was a lot of talk about 3 years, getting the ETS2 for everyone 3 years later. Now we can see there's, the position is slowly changing into other options, and we will see what happens because it's behind closed doors. So, I think they still want to get the ETS2 to delay it by 3 years, but I think they getting the sense that it's going to be very, very tricky. So they're looking now into other options, and they're in the process of thinking about it.
Yeah, thank you, Michał. I think there was a raised hand. Unfortunately, I cannot see it. So if the person wants to unmute themselves and ask the question, you're welcome. Okay, then I proceed with the second part. So our first speaker, unfortunately, is not here. And so we'll continue with Louise Lennon. So in this part, we will focus on specific groups that are frequently left behind. We had a presentation on indebtedness, which is one group. I just want to flag, even though if we don't have the presentation now. And the second group that we want to focus on are solid fuel users. They already made an appearance in many of the previous presentations. And we will have Louise Lennon for that topic. She's a policy and communications officer at the Irish Rural Link. And Louise's work includes engaging members and rural communities about relevant policy developments, and she advocates for the needs of rural communities. And she has advocated for targeting energy poverty in rural areas by setting up dedicated retrofitting programs for households that are using solely solid fuels. So welcome, Louise, and thanks for being here.
Thank you, Eva, for the invitation and for the introduction, and good morning to everyone. I'll just share, I just have a few slides to share, so I think I can do that. The bar is yeah, I might have to leave it. I can't when I'm sharing the screen. One moment now. Now, can people see?
Yes, now we see the presentation mode.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. So, thanks again to Eva for inviting me to speak here today. Just, I suppose, as Eva introduced, Irish Rural Link is a national organisation based in Ireland. We were established in 1991. I suppose our vision is of vibrant, inclusive and sustainable rural communities that contribute to an equitable and just society. We work with community groups and organisations who work with marginalised and disadvantaged people in rural communities across Ireland. We advocate for better services, more sustainable rural communities through bilateral meetings with different government departments and different government agencies. We engage in public consultations and highlight any changes in media as well. I suppose just with the social climate plans and social climate fund, I suppose in Ireland at the moment, there has been no public consultation where we've been engaging with other NGOs, especially the Environmental Justice Network of Ireland have done a good bit of work on this and just informing other NGOs and other stakeholders about the plans. But as of yet, there has been no public consultation by government. There was a parliamentary question last week to the minister on this, and it may be possible at the latter part of the year for submissions to go to the Commission. So I think from our point of view, and I probably correct in saying for other NGOs who have been working in this area as well on energy poverty, it is very disappointing that hasn't a consultation hasn't taken place yet. I know we still have about a month yet, so we'll just keep our fingers crossed. I suppose my focus today is on rural housing and I suppose those households that are dependent on solid fuels for their heating. So I suppose like most other rural areas in across Europe, the housing in rural areas in Ireland, a lot of it is of older housing stock. Would have been built like there's still houses that exist that are over 200 years old, but a lot from the 60s and 70s, single dwellings, one-off, quite dispersed. The picture here shows a house quite dispersed, but in some areas that they can be even more dispersed, and you know, a good distance between houses. I suppose in rural areas as well, we have older populations, especially in the west and northwest of the country. So and they're harder to reach, I suppose, not just geographically, but also in their mindset on, I suppose, changing from using solid fuels and using fossil fuels to heat their home. I suppose that's always been the way. It was, you know, how they heated their homes, how it was their main source of energy. So it can be difficult to change that mindset, but also the structure of the houses as well makes it quite difficult to change. As I mentioned, houses in rural areas are heavily reliant on fossil fuels to heat their homes. Oil is also, you know, we have no natural gas coming, you know, in rural areas either. So it is either fossil fuels or and oil to heat homes. Rural housing, I suppose, it is more difficult to heat the homes and more expensive to, you know, make the changes to retrofit to, I suppose, change to heat pumps. I know Mikael had talked about the initiatives for heat pumps, and you know, that's an ongoing process here in Ireland to change from oil heating, solid fuel heating to heat pumps. Again, I suppose just to give a few figures on the number of households, I suppose, still reliant on peat, especially, not, you know, and that's peat alone that people are using to heat their homes. So the last census in 2022, there was over 21,000 households had no actual central heating system in their home. So they probably rely mainly on just one open fire. I have no picture here, but they were quite, like, I remember my my dad's aunt had just that was all that heated the house, was one fire in one room. So there's still over 21,000 households with such a system. Over 68,000 households were still using peat, including turf, as their main source of heating. And I suppose in Ireland, people still have turbidity rights. They can cut their own turf and use it for their own heating. And it is that cheaper source of heating than oil, than, you know, converting to heat pumps. But again, it is, you know, people's attitudes are changing, I suppose, towards that. You know, it's higher among older age cohorts. Those people in 65 plus age group rely more on peat and turf to heat their home than, I suppose, younger households who may have bought newer homes or built newer homes in the past decade or so, you know, have different more advanced heat systems. And then again, almost 7,000 of the 65 plus have no central heating in their homes. So again, I suppose looking at who needs to reach, I suppose we work with a lot of low income households, people reliant on social welfare payments, and older people as well, who would be on, you know, reliant solely on the state pension. So we would see that those low income households who are living in older housing stock and poor energy rating, would need to be targeted. Also, low-income households and receipt of social welfare payments. Some households who receive social welfare payments may be entitled to a fuel allowance, but then to avail of grants at the moment and schemes by the Sustainable Energy Authority of Ireland, you need to own the home. So I suppose looking at the wider cohort of people in receipt of social welfare, many of them would not be homeowners and would be renting mainly in the private rental sector at the moment because of the lack of social housing, and then paying, I suppose, higher energy costs as well and fuel costs. Also, households on low income who do not qualify for 100% grants. So there are those who are working, maybe in low paid work, who don't qualify for social welfare or any of the, the eligibility payments, I suppose, that are the payments that make you eligible for the 100% grants. There is that cohort that probably will never be able to afford to make the changes that are needed to their homes to provide more energy efficient heating. Also, I suppose,
can I ask you to wrap up in about 1 minute?
So,
thank you.
So I suppose just the two other households are those who rely on peat alone to heat their homes, but also those who still burn peat as a choice as well. There is people who still like the open fire. I suppose looking, some of these were discussed, and Susanna had good examples of the one-stop shop, and we've been advocating for that in-person one-stop shop in rural areas, and using, I suppose, facilities like community centres where people are at, I suppose, and meeting people where they are at. We'd also see sliding scale loans. There were low interest loans introduced 2 years ago. However, we would prefer if these were zero interest loans, especially for low income families, or that there's this loans and grants are sliding scale, with those that are on lower incomes would get a higher percentage of a grant than, I suppose, those who can afford them and are actually now availing from grants. Again, community outreach program, and Susanna had some examples of this as well, and we've done such programs in the past to help, I suppose, support people to make changes, and it did involve going into people's homes and speaking with them, using a community champion scheme, where people who were known to the people in the area, in the local community, to reach out and support them in making those changes, filling out the forms, filling out application forms, or seeing what needs to be done. And then I think having that lived experience, or that peer-to-peer approach, if a neighbour has made those changes, just speaking how it works. And I think there is an education piece as well, and engagement around, because I think the new heating systems is very different, and we have heard of cases where people don't know how to work they're installed, and then they're left to their own device and don't know how to use them, and probably using them more inefficiently than needs be. So thank you for listening, and I know there's a discussion after this, so thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Louise, for the presentation and showing the characteristics of the housing stock. the rural housing stock in Ireland and households that are relying on the solid fuels. What you mentioned, the Environmental Justice Network Ireland, at the beginning, they also issued guidance for the social climate plans, including solid fuel users. So, we can share that in the chat afterwards. And I think that it's very important to what you shared also about the eligibility criteria, that households that are dependent on social welfare and state pensions will need 100% support, and the additional recommendations you mentioned at the end. So we will now have our last presentation, which is by Jan Milota. He is a counselor for ending homelessness in the Czech social housing platform. And he works as a consultant for systemic change in municipalities. So he helps municipalities to effectively implement measures to end homelessness, and also for housing first approaches, and as well as developing housing loss prevention programs. And he is also one of the authors of the housing loss prevention methodology. So, and today he will talk about housing precarity about energy poverty from the perspective of housing precarity and tenants particular. So, thank you for being with us, Jan.
Thanks for invitation. Thanks for all the presentations. It's very helpful to have this broader picture of Europe and energy poverty. Can I ask you, Eva, if you can upload the presentation? I'm not very sure I would be successful uploading the presentation. Thank you very much. So I can start without the presentation. As a disclaimer, I'm not an expert in ECP programs or how energy efficiency refurbishment. But what I want to stress today is some overlap or let's say intersection between housing precarity and energy poverty in Czech Republic, which is very concerning since spring 2021, the start of energy crisis. But let me just start with some sobering facts. We had just before the spring 2021, 900,000 people living in energy poverty, which is 8.7% of total population. It spread across approximately 500,000 households. And you see, this is not a marginal problem. This is a systemic one. It affects everyday lives of hundreds, thousands of people, and undermining their health, ability to participate, work, or whatever else. Just a closer look on the target group, we know that the energy poverty tackles approximately 220,000 children, which is 10% of total children population in the country, which means that 30% are single parents household, often struggling with financial poverty, housing exclusion, and all the connected problems. And then we know another 30% of low-income families who qualifies for child benefits, which means this is 1.6 multiple of subsistence minimum in Czech Republic face energy poverty just before or even before 2021. The new numbers we don't have, but we would consider them it raised up 10%, mostly by the most vulnerable target group. So these statistics are deeply troubling. You see or we see that the energy poverty disproportionately affect the youngest people, so women and most vulnerable in the society. So the energy poverty is not evenly dispersed in the society. Then the second most vulnerable group are pensioners, so elderly people. We know that more than 300,000 elderly people live in energy poverty, which is 16% of total pensioners population in Czech Republic. The striking majority of this group are single women, and this is highlighting the gender nature of the poverty in old age. These pensioners live often alone in older, poorly insulated housing, and they have fixed incomes and faced increasingly difficult choices between paying heat or medication or food. This is the basic thing with this group. So what we know now and what we understand is that energy poverty is not just about income; it's already also deeply connected with the housing quality. We have to use energy performance indicators, and clearly, most people in energy poverty live in buildings with high energy consumptions in the rental housing, not in ownership housing. Just some brief policy response from last 2 or 3 years. There are key measures currently discussed to tackle energy poverty. First is targeted price regulation and social energy discounts. These are aimed to support vulnerable households with lower tariffs, while well-intentioned to be often from poor targeting. Then the second point is improving households' finances through social support. This includes housing allowances, which provide essential relief. However, their effectiveness depends on adequate coverage and accessibility. The third point is reducing energy consumption, which means improving efficiency, especially in old and poorly built houses. This is not in Czech Republic the case just in the rural areas, but also in the municipal areas, and especially I would stress in very low standard hostels, which are providing housing for minorities like Romani people and other excluded from the housing market. The fourth point is legislative and advisory infrastructure. We have right now the Act on Housing Support gone through the Parliament. So since beginning from the next year, we are able to help all these people in housing insecurity, help to get proper housing. This is not gonna start in proper insulated housing, because lots of municipalities are providing not energy efficient housing for the poorest people. Main challenges or struggles, despite these measures, there are very serious malfunctions. First is we have the problem with targeting. We often implement blanket measures, costly to the state and ineffective for those who need help most. We know that we are targeting the population in ownership housing, which is not the most vulnerable, and we are not able to target people in rental and very insecure rental sector, and there are no measures how to tackle these people on the legislative or another level of agency. We have managed targeting pensioners, especially disabled individuals, and families receiving child benefits, but tenants in rental housing remain largely left behind. So what we see right now, we are not able to target these most vulnerable people in rental sector, especially in larger cities like Prague or Brno. Many tenants live in apartment buildings with high energy costs, and this is a very special problem for these people living in quasi-hostels for long periods of their life. We see there's lack of targeting in housing allowance system, and when there are some programs for refurbishing rental housing, we see that there might be a problem that the costs of housing, especially the rents, can go much higher, and these people are not able to afford. This wouldn't be an affordable housing anymore, even it's energy efficient. So we don't have any measures how not to pour the prices higher when the houses get more efficient. And some conclusions. We see that the energy poverty is not an isolated issue. It's deeply tied to housing, income, gender, age, and social status. We need to better identification of tools to precisely reach those in need. We need a housing policy that supports tenants, regulates rent increases, and prevents exploitative practices. We need deep investment in energy efficiency, especially in rental housing sector and apartment buildings. We need comprehensive understanding of informal housing arrangements and their impacts. And above all, we need a political will to prioritize energy justice. Thanks for invitation, and I'm open to reply questions.
Yeah, thank you a lot, Jan. That offered a new perspective to what we've discussed so far. So I think particularly the emphasis on tenants and on housing informality, that not all state aid programs reach the most vulnerable. For example, with the housing allowance, you raised the topic of the gray zones here. So that measures might have to be designed beyond that. And then also very valuable from the perspective of Jansa, the topic of providing municipal housing for those experiencing housing exclusion or housing insecurity, that these homes are frequently not efficient. So I would like to ask the audience if they have one or two quick questions for our last presenters, and then I will ask a question for the panel discussion. Yeah, I cannot see any raised hands. If you can also unmute yourself if you have a question. Okay, that doesn't seem to be the case. Then I ask the first question for the panel. So I will just ask one question and then ask the audience whether they have additional questions for all of our speakers that they would like to see discussed. So my question is, since in the Social Climate Fund there are specific requirements, specific allocations for income supportive measures, which are allowed to be maximum of 30% of the spendings. And also these income supportive measures have to decline over time. And a third caveat is that they are not allowed to be spent on households which are not directly affected by ETS2. So, for example, solid fuel users would not be able to be eligible for the income supportive measures. But we know from past energy crises that the gas price has a price setting power over solid fuel prices, for example. So they will be indirectly affected. And so given these different contexts, what do you think? How can income supportive measures and structural measures be combined in a meaningful way to really help and guard the most vulnerable households from the ETS2 and help them transition? Yeah, you can jump in if you want to start.
I might come in there just with the exclusion, even the exclusion of solid fuel users to get income support, like you're excluding in Ireland anyway, a lot, and I suppose the majority of the vulnerable groups who actually need the supports. I think making the structural changes would be needed first, and then they'll be able to get direct income supports then to, I suppose, support them with their new energy, with their energy bills, which people are still struggling with. Even those who have in living in social welfare or social housing at the moment, that where they have been retrofitted and have heat pumps, with energy costs increasing, that they're still struggling to make ends meet. So I think I think that the structural changes need to come first. If there's not going to be direct income support for households using solid fuel.
Yeah, thank you, Louise. Does any of the other panelists have a contribution to this question?
I can say a few sentences. I agree with Louise in a way that at least in Hungary we need we haven't really had programs, as I mentioned, targeting the vulnerable households. So we had no social targeting on structural measures, so specifically on renovating the houses. And this would be most needed because this would really address the core of the problem, and it would have the longer effect. And with structural measures, we would really treat the cause. And even if income support were introduced, which is, as far as I know, the Hungarian government is not planning to include income support. This would only, well, not solve the problem, and would only somehow mitigate the problem for a few years. So this money on structural measures, I think, would be prioritized.
Yeah, thank you, Zuzanna. Miljenka?
Yeah, I just want to say basically the same thing as Louise and Susanna already said, that it's not that we don't have measures. I think that they're in some cases poorly targeted, and that will be the case probably in the social climate plans, if the plans will be implemented in the future period. For example, in Croatia, we have these vouchers for electricity and for gas that were introduced back in 2015. They were mainly being given to people who were already the welfare system, and until 2022 there were around 50,000 beneficiaries of this measure. And then in 2022 the government decided to broaden the category, and the number doubled in like last 3 years. So now we have around 110 or 105,000 people who are beneficiaries, but the criterias were not adjusted accordingly based on the income. They just included like certain categories of citizens that are maybe not in as dire need as some categories that are still being left out. So we have a huge issue with the criteria how these vouchers are being distributed, and with the amount of money that is actually being distributed, because like per one household can receive up to 70 euros for their heating bill. And in some cases, that's not enough money because they are, as we all said previously, they live in extremely inefficient households. So in many cases, this is just like a small percentage of their actual costs. And another thing that we have been seeing more and more is this extreme level of poverty. As I said at the beginning of my presentation, we have like these citizens that are not being part of welfare system. They're sometimes kind of invisible people living in this like very very hazardous situations, and the measures that we are describing when we are talking about renovation measures usually do not reach to these people, because either they are missing some type of form, or they are not aware that they are even eligible for something. And like we have a lot of, at least in Croatia, a lot of structural issues when we are talking about poverty or energy poverty or the combination of both. So I think that like one of the issues that we will be seeing more and more is that this inequalities and this inability to reach like real people who are really in need will just like deepen as like we go more in the future. That's like my feeling, at least.
Yeah, thank you, Mienka. Does anyone else from the panel want to come in on this question? Otherwise, I take an audience question.
I can just maybe repeat what was already said, because I agree with everything that was said. And I would like to repeat the words of Sviatoslav about the identification of energy poor society, and that is really lacking in many countries to do that properly, to get the scale of the problem, and to have the database updated, which you can use for the direct income support to target them and to get the criteria right, because we can see that without, it's really important, as was said with the income criteria, that there is this force to just look at high cost, not look at the low income, because it's just easier to do sometimes. So do as much as you can to have evidence-based policy on the actual data that you have, and compose a strategy, a holistic strategy to mitigate the energy poverty using the direct income support for the transition phase.
Maybe I can add a couple of words too, if we have time, to add a little bit more clarity of what is happening in Bulgaria, at least. I guess the situation is more or less the same everywhere, but the thing is that for quite some time we have a winter support subsidy scheme in Bulgaria, which is reaching nearly 300,000 in need, energy poor people. It is a scheme run by the social ministry for quite some years already, and there is also an income criteria included there. So the thing is that we already have something working, but for us the problem is how to broaden this, because we have this instrument, but right now we don't have information for all the others. For all the others, people who are not eligible, who are not receiving winter subsidy support scheme. And the problem for us is with this support scheme, it's that we are basically not addressing the critical issue. We are giving support, monetary support for heating every single winter to those households. But the thing is that we are not getting them out from energy poverty. And now the social climate plan, it's a chance to do so. It's a chance to do some measures to increase the energy efficiency of these people.
Yeah, thank you, Svetoslav. Then I take the audience question. That's Anna. Okay, so Anna, do you want to unmute yourself? Okay, then
I don't think participants can do that. I think it's only
Really?
us, the panelists.
Okay, then I asked a question from the chat. Thank you for posting. I have a question on the situation of Czech households living in informal housing or unsecure rental. Are there good practices that legalize housing or help to get out of precarious rental contracts as a first step to access energy efficiency funding? In Hungary, informal ownership status in Roma settlements is a major barrier to access for any EU funding on housing measures.
Okay, that's possibly for me. So I'll try to reply. Basically, the Romani population and the other minorities living in these substandard hotels are using not tenant leases, but hostel kind of leases. So these people could be evicted from day to day after the leases ended up, and these leases are basically for 1 month. So there is no secure housing for these people. And what I see is critical that the administration and the political will is somehow struggling with the notion that put enough money for energy efficiency for these low standard hostels would be a big problem, considering these people are like slumlords. And we don't have any investments for this housing, and these people are tackled with secondarily with the energy poverty. But we do have some programs financed by ESF Plus scheme, which are basically based on housing first approach. And we've been able to rehouse more than 1,200 families with children and individuals from the housing needs. Let's say half of them were using these substandard hostels before they were rehoused in these programs. And basically on this experiences, the Social Housing Act, I can call it Social Housing Act, is built. So possibly in next 5 years, we are able to relocate more than, let me count, 15,000 households from this sector of substandard housing, which is half of the population. But now I wonder if I replied to your question. So just
Yeah, thank you, Jan. I think that was a good overview over the context with the informal rental contracts and the efficiency. So we are coming to the end of the webinar. Thank you all so much for participating, to the audience, and for your questions and the presentation. I'm wrapping up some of the key takeaways, which is income supportive measures that are needed, heating type independent, also after the transition, as we have seen with the energy, with the heat pumps that can cause high energy. The problem is not solved post-transition, especially if they are installed in inefficient homes. And here again, the remark that the installation should be tied to energy efficiency first, that renovations have the highest priority. I think that we have seen that across all of the presentations, that there needs to be a specific focus on people in housing insecurity and in informal housing arrangements, with the alert that they might not be appearing in state aid programs even. And civil society organizations might know about them, local authorities might know about them, so it's important to involve them in the consultations to design measures that are inclusive, and yeah, to get the identification of these groups right for the social climate plans. That's it from my side, and yeah, thank you again so much for being here, and I hope to stay in touch with you, and yeah, thank you.